The Lord prepared him a body, just like yours and mine, so he could come down to us and we could quit trying to get to him. What a difference it is. Just all depends on how you see it. Somebody called me the other day, was asking me about the Sabbath, and it was a little confusing to them because they thought that a law was all it was. I said, well, all the Sabbath is God giving you the opportunity to find out that he can meet every need that you have without your help. He said, I'm going to give you a day to where you don't have to do anything so you can find out I do everything. Isn't that right? He said, I don't want you out working in the fields and raising crops and picking it and everything like that. Going Sabbath day, you'll find out who I am. Boy, he is the Sabbath, isn't he? He is our rest, and that's what he came to be. And I thank him for that. Well, do you know now why I get so many opportunities to preach? As long as I let them know Esther's coming. I called one preacher in Florida one time and told him she wasn't going to be able to come, and it got real quiet. True story. When I got there, one of the men said, well, preacher, said we found out Esther wasn't coming, so we had a vote on whether to have the meeting or not. And said, I want to encourage you. You won by one vote. So that is a blessing. Had a great day today. We went out to eat with Cody and Paige and the children, and we survived. So we're proud of that. No, we had a blast. We had a wonderful time. Thank the Lord for it. I hadn't told you that Esther and I celebrated our 50th year anniversary. Ain't that a blessing? And I got good news and I got bad news. The good news is she bought me a new pair of prescription glasses for our anniversary. And I wore them for about 4 days, and then they disappeared. I said, where's the glasses? She said, I took them back. I said, you did? She said, yeah. And I told the doctor. He said, something wrong with the glasses? She said, no. Said, I bought those glasses thinking I might be able to help him. And said, I took them home. He wore them for 4 days, and he still can't see things like I do. So, don't you wives wish you had a pair of glasses like that? Let's take our Bibles and turn to 1 Samuel and chapter number 11. We're looking at this matter of weak and the matter of strong. Truth of the matter is there will be times in our lives when we are weak. There's a history to that. Men and women are weak. There's a hazard in it. You may become a freak. But thank God there is a hope in it. Once you find him as your deliverer and your Savior, there is hope. But tonight I want to move beyond that, and I want to look at this thought of strong. The thought of strong. Let's read the text first. The Nahash, the Ammonite, came up and encamped against Jabesh Gilead. Again, this is part of the half-tribe of Manasseh that settled on the east side of the Jordan, which really wasn't the promised land, setting them apart from the other 9.5 tribes, and especially that tabernacle where God would dwell. And all the men of Jabez said unto Nahash, make a covenant with us, and we will serve thee. Nahash the Ammonite answered them, On this condition will I make a covenant with you, that I may thrust out all your right eyes, and lay it for reproach upon all Israel. Don't let no man make a freak out of you. And the elders of Jabesh said unto him, Give us 7 days' respite, and we may send messengers unto all the coasts of Israel, and then if there be no man to save us. They're in a crisis. God will let you get into a crisis to find out how weak you are, so that you can find out how strong he is. And then if there be no man to save us, we will come out to thee. Then came the messengers of Gibeah of Saul and told the tidings in the ears of the people, and all the people lifted up their voices and wept. And behold, Saul came after the herd out of the field, and Saul said, What aileth the people that they weep? And they told him the tidings of the men of Jabesh. The Spirit of God came upon Saul when he heard these tidings, and his anger at Saul when he heard these tidings, and his anger was kindled greatly. Verse 11. It was so on the morrow that Saul put the people in 3 companies. They came into the midst of the host in the morning watch and slew the Ammonites until the heat of the day. It came to pass that they which remained were scattered, so that 2 of them were not left together. Now let's go to chapter 31. 40 years later, and we're still dealing with these 2 sets of characters, Jabesh Gilead, Saul, and Israel. In our first text, Jabesh Gilead is weak and Saul is strong. But in our next text, things have changed, and Saul becomes weak. But thank God Jabesh Gilead has become strong. So it is in our lives, it is the course of life. They will intersect your weaknesses and your strengths. Look, if you will, chapter number 31, verse 8. And it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. They cut off his head and stripped off his armor and sent into the land of the Philistines round about to publish it in the house of their idols. This is a God thing. And among the people, and they put his armor in the house of Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. When the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard of that which the Philistines had done to Saul, listen to this. Those that were weak, all the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of the sons of his sons from the walls of Bethshan, and came to Jabesh and burnt them there. And they took their bones and buried them under a tree in Jabesh and fasted 7 days. Now go to chapter 2 for our last text of Samuel, 2 Samuel. And verse 4. David has become king, as we'll read. And the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And they told David, saying that the men of Jabesh Gilead were they that buried Saul. First thing they told him. David sent messengers unto the men of Jabesh Gilead, noted for their weakness. But it is here God lets them to reveal their strength. And said unto them, Blessed be ye of the Lord, that ye have showed this kindness unto your Lord, even to Saul, and have buried him. And now the Lord show kindness and truth unto you. And I also will requite you this kindness, because ye have done this thing. Therefore now let your hands be strengthened, and be ye valiant. For your master Saul is dead, Also the house of Judah hath anointed me king over them. Tonight I want to emphasize this matter of strength or of being strong. We sometimes in false humility say, well, I don't have any strengths. I don't have any strong points. I don't have any gifts. But yet the truth of it is in this congregation tonight, every one of you have certain strengths that the others do not have. There's no need to downplay or minimize your gifts, nor to be haughty and proud. But use it to help someone who is in the grips of weakness. God has given you some abilities to use for His glory. And I'm thankful for the things that you are strong in because I need your strengths. On whatever level that it is. I'm thankful for the mechanic that can fix the car. I'm thankful for the geeks that can fix the computers. I'm thankful for those that can build. I'm thankful for the doctors who can operate and who can do wondrous things that God has given them the ability to do. And the truth of the matter is, every one of us, without false humility, have been given something that we can do better than the person sitting beside us. That's just the way God made us. We have some strengths. Sometimes they are physical strengths. Sometimes they are mental strengths. And sometimes they are spiritual strengths. But you are stronger on some level. The truth of the matter is, in this matter of weakness and strong, is they intersect. And we both will need one another at one time or another. In your weakness, you're going to need somebody that is strong. In your strength, you need to be ministering to those that are weak. That is the way that God has ordained it. So I would say to you, and then I'll give you 3 thoughts. Be careful as to how you treat the weak on your way up, because you may need them on your way down. It is so blessed that Saul took out the time for the weak. But little did he know that that same crowd who was weak would one day be the strong that would take out the time for him. This is illustrated in family life. How that a child is so weak and needs a mother and needs a father to be strong for them. But then in the natural processes of life, as a result of becoming weak in age, in body, and in mind, those who were strong now need the children to come along and be strong for them. And that is the cycle in which it works. As you are strong for the child, it is the child who one day will be strong for you. Galatians 6:1-2, Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Romans 15:1, we then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak. Those strengths that you have, Let God show you those that are weak around you so that you might be able to minister to them and not please ourselves. Romans 14 and verse number 1, him that is weak in the faith receive ye, but not to doubtful disputations. 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 14, we exhort you, brethren, warn them that are unruly, comfort the feeble-minded, support the weak, and be patient to all men. Taking your strengths and thank God for what they are, and making sure that they are being used to help and minister to someone around you that God has brought to your attention that is weak. Because the day is going to come that you also in some way, it's inevitable to every one of us, you will become weak. And you're going to need someone that you have touched in their weakness to become strong for you. And that is the way that it works. As a matter of fact, I would say that you can judge how strong you have been when in your weakness you can look around and see the strengths of those who you have touched in their weaknesses. And they have raised up, and they are strong on your behalf. Jabez needs a strong Saul. They are weak. But Saul and Israel needs Jabez now because they are weak and Jabez is strong. You're going to need somebody that you have ministered your strengths to help you along in your journey. I would say, first of all, take your strengths and minister to the weak, as Saul did to Jabesh Gilead. Because the time is going to come when you're going to need somebody to love you. The endearment that is revealed in the text, when Jabesh, look at it in verse 11, amidst all the danger, amidst all of the darkness, amidst all of the distance, it seems as though that there was something within them that would not let them remain. They're being forced by an affection. They're being forced by a spirit of endearment to go and deliver someone that 40 years before had delivered them. They can't get over it. Verse 11, and when the inhabitants of Jabesh heard of that which the Philistines had done to Saul, who? Have you heard what happened to Saul? They know who Saul is. All the valiant, that word means mighty, that word means strong men, arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of the son from the walls of Bethshan. There is an inner force and a drive, a passion and a compassion. They are headed out to deliver those who had delivered them. There is this spirit of love that is so personal and so precious. It seems as though that the memories of Jabesh Gilead overcomes the miles. They don't care how fierce it is. They don't care how far it is, because they can remember the ones who delivered them in their strength when they were so weak. If they hadn't have showed up, they would have been destroyed. And now they are rising up in their strength. And they're going not just because they have to, but because they have a passion. They have a heart. They want to go. This is not a guilt complex. This is something that is within them that they have to. They must do it. I'm going to tell you, the day is going to come when you're going to need somebody who, out of the spirit of love, is going to come to your side, and you're going to feel the affection as they wait on you and as they take care of you and as they come to your aid out of love and endearment. I've witnessed that as a pastor. I've witnessed that as an evangelist. That cuddling love of someone who was one time weak as a child toward a mother or a grandmother or a father or grandfather that was strong. But now it is obvious that their grandfather is strong, maybe a stroke or a heart attack, or their grandmother, whatever the situation, or maybe a sister or a brother that has become weak, and you come with a heart. You rise up, no matter the cost, no matter what's involved in it, no matter what you're going to face, no matter the dangers that are there as they travel through the night in a territory that is inhabited with the Philistines that have just won a massive victory, and they're going to go through the middle of that to deliver somebody that has delivered them. We ought to know that, because the Bible said we love him because he first loved us. We can't get over his strengths in our lives when we were so weak. That's why we want to sing his praises. That's why we want to testify to his glory. That's why we want to preach his word. That's why we want to tell the world about a Savior like none other. There is an endearment, a touch to it. I'm thinking of a family member, not immediate, a sister-in-law, and my brother, who there was a granddaughter born into the family, and it was nothing bad about it. Had a good mom and good daddy, but because of their working habits, they lived close to Joe and Sandy, and so they'd bring Michaela over, and Joe and Sandy just loved it. I mean, they're up in age in their 70s and so, but they loved Michaela. And she was with them every day until going into school, but then they'd take her to school and bring her home. And it just had that relationship with that child. And I watched that through all of those years. But now Michaela is married. She is in her 20s. She and her husband have their own child. But every time I call her grandmother, which is my sister-in-law, I can hear the voice of Michaela. Or if they're going out and shopping, I mean, you're talking 60 years in difference or more as far as age. She's an old lady, and Michaela's a young. And when Michaela has a question, she calls her. And if Sandy's got a need, now the other family and the children do so. But the thing that amazes me is this young girl who ought to be getting along with her own life, and she is, but somehow she is putting her energies into somebody at an old age. Mama, Grandma, I want to hear what you want to say. I want to talk to you. I want to travel with you. I want to go with you. I want to be with you. And what an encouragement it is to Sandy for that young lady to love her so much. And it is such a blessing and so evident. preaching in Springfield, Illinois. There was an old preacher there, right at 90, and he could still walk with a walker. But I noticed that there was what I found out to be also a granddaughter with him. And as we talked, and I could tell her affections for him, her care for him, I said to him, "You're blessed to have a granddaughter." Oh, he said, "She takes care of every need that I have." And her answer was, "Because he took care of every need that I had." It sure does pay off. I'm going to tell you, don't overlook these little ones running around here that are weak, as if you don't have time for them because you're too strong and you got too much to do and you're too smart and they're so ignorant. One of these days, they're going to rise up and become strong, and you'll want them in love to come and hug your neck and kiss you on the cheek and say, "I'm here. What is it you need today, Mama? What do you need today, Daddy? I am here. I'll carry you if I have to. Whatever needs to be done, I will do it. No limits. It's in my heart to do it."
That's good, brother. Yes.
There's no way about it. No way around it. You're going to get weak. So be careful how you treat the weak. Understand you got certain powers they don't have. And you're going to need their love, their endearment, their affection. But isn't that the greatest thing we need when we are sick and weak? We need somebody to love on us. Love on somebody. Don't sit around and be that old gripe. Them young, one of these days you're going to need them. But they won't know how to get close to you. There was no love connection. But did you notice how they rose up, putting their lives on the line? They gave their all that night when they started out in the dark, because somebody had given their all to deliver them. Oh, love these young'uns around here. Love them, love them. Be good to them. Take out time for them, because they will be needed. When you're on your way up, be careful how you treat the weak. You'll need them on your way down. Let your strengths minister to other folks' weakness, because you will need somebody to love you. Endearment. But the second thing that I notice in this text is in that Saul and Israel didn't realize it, that when they were ministering to the weakness of Jabez, they were teaching them some things. Teaching them some things that they needed to learn so that they could be strong. You're not just naturally strong in many areas of your life. You got to be educated. You got to be taught. You got to be raised up. You got to be ministered to. It's strong people that teach you those things that you can learn so that you can be strong. So I would say it this way: take your strengths and minister to those that are weak, because you will need someone not only to love you, but somebody who has learned from you. I often say the greatest relationship in the entirety of time and eternity is a father and a son. You say, "Well, I don't believe that." Well, look at Jesus and his father. But it's also close in a mother and a daughter. And there's nothing any more blessed than to see a father and son working on a car together. A father and son building a house together. A father and son traveling somewhere together, a father and son preaching together, a father and son working together in a church, a father and son. And the reason why it is that son is taking every step that father is taking, and in his strengths, he's enabling the son to do what he's doing when he gets strong. These kids need to learn how to do God's will in their lives. Some of them's going to get called to preach, and they need to know what preaching's all about. They need to know what praying's all about. They need to know what worshiping's all about. But they're not going to find that in some book somewhere. You're going to have to show them. They're walking in your steps. They're weak, but they're listening. They're looking. You'll be surprised how much they had learned. In the midst of their weakness, they're picking up on things. They just needed somebody to come down in there. Jonathan was known for his bow, was he not? His bow. Seemed as though Saul was known for his javelin. He always wanted to throw it. Each one of those men came down there with, some of them were great with the sling. The Benjamites, left-handed. And here is this weak little place that really has no strength at all. They don't even obviously know how to fight. They cannot even protect themselves. They left themselves open to the enemy. But here comes the deliverers that are strong. And man, they watched that fella throw that stone as David could throw a stone. And they watched as Jonathan pulled that bow back. And they watched him in hand-to-hand combat. I mean, they watched him through all the warfare. And when the battle was all over and they went back, I can hear Jabez say to the people of the city, listen, we ain't never going to be caught like that again. We're going to start putting all this that we've been taught to use, and we're going to find out and know how to shoot a bow and use a sword and fight in hand-to-hand combat, because we don't want to ever get in this mess again. You ever get in a crisis and God sends somebody to help you out, and you learn from them certain traits that will keep you from ever being in that place again. A preacher will preach that word to you, and it'll ignite you and lift you up and make you strong. Some of these kids are going to come out of here and be your next preachers. Some of these young ladies are going to birth preachers. They got to know what to do in those situations. And the only way they can is we who are strong have got to teach them, taught them. So much so that the Bible said on 2 occasions they were valiant men. That meant to be strong. It meant to have power. It meant to have might. They were enabling them. There was not only endearment out of those weak who became strong, but there was enablement. There was love and learning at the same time. Boy, I'm going to tell you something. If you got something on anybody waiting on you that loves you, that also knows how to do it, you're blessed. Huh? I've got a daughter by the name of Lydia, and she's a nurse. And when I get around her, she wants to check blood pressure and all that other stuff, see how I'm doing. She thinks I go too much. But here's the thing about it. And she says, Bart, and all my kids would do it, but she says, no, Dad, I'm taking care of you. You and Mama's coming here, and I'm taking care of you. But this much I know. She has the gift as far as medicine is concerned. Of course, the kind of job she's got, she is a, what is it? Hospice. I may be in bad shape. She works for a hospice. I said, honey, I mean, you know, I come here, I must be on my last leg, whatever. But her desire is to make sure if I need something that she can be frontline to the best of her ability to meet it outside of her heart. Now, I couldn't train her to do the medicine part, but I'm going to tell you something. I could train her to want to serve God and to love God and to love His people and love His preacher so that God could use her when He raised her up to minister to me and others when they become strong, because we're going to. Are you hearing me? We're going to. Take your strengths to minister to those that are weak, because you're going to need somebody to love you with endearment. You're going to need somebody to learn from you with enablement. Paul enabled Timothy. Jonathan enabled David. Moses enabled Joshua. And on. Elijah enabled Elisha. Paul enabled Timothy. A.B. Simpson said, God is preparing His heroes. And when opportunity comes, He will fit them into their place, and the world will wonder where they came from. But I'm going to tell you where they come from. Right out from under your feet. As you take the strengths that God has given you to pray for them and to love them and to minister to them. The weak and the strong. 40 years, and they came back together. But there was a change in the weakness and the strong. Can I say to you lastly, you need to make sure you use your strengths that you've got to minister, and let God show you somebody that's weak. Don't disdain them. Don't say, well, they ought to know better. It's their fault for being so far away from the tabernacle and on the east side of the Jordan. They ought to move over here. That ain't what they need to hear. They need to have somebody to come with a heart to deliver them, and they did. But thank God it paid off 40 years later. It'll pay off. You'll need somebody to love you with endearment. You'll need somebody to learn from you with enablement. But you'll need somebody to lift you with some encouragement. And as you read the text, you can realize that what Saul did for them was something that nobody else could do, and raised them up. And so as a result of that, when they come to where Saul and them are, they, through their strengths, is able to lift all of Israel up. Listen to what David says. You're talking about being lifted up. The men of Judah came in verse 4, and they anointed David, and then they told him all they could talk about was what Jabesh Gilead had done for them. And David goes and says, blessed be you, the Lord, that you've showed this kindness, and so on. I mean, all of Israel has been raised up and given strength in the midst of a defeat. Why? Because of those who were one time weak were ministered to by the strong, and now they come in their strength and they raise up those who are weak. They just bring a spirit of rejoicing in the midst of what seemed to be a defeat. They brought encouragement, strength, not for competition, but for comfort. I thought about so much what the Bible said when it said love one another, pray for one another, admonish one another, edify one another, forgive one another, be kind to one another, be compassionate to one another, comfort one another, minister to one another, consider one another, show hospitality to one another. Because when you are ministering to the weak, understand what I'm saying? You never know what you're creating and what's going to come out of that weakness. The Bible said it's out of weakness that we are made strong. The weakness is not the end of the road, and it's not a shame that you are weak if you'll just call on somebody strong. But it is in that weakness that when you come to the aid, you never know what you're raising with that child, who in its weakness that you constantly minister unto. You never know what you're ministering to when you minister to that drunk. That's in the vice of alcohol or drugs, but yet you go where they're at and you preach to them and sing to them and minister. You don't know what God's going to bring out of there and create. Little did Israel know that nothing of Jabesh Gilead in their weakness is one day going to be the primary source that was to save them in the time of their weakness. Let us be amazed at what we can create. God will let you in your strengths create some things in the hearts of people who need it in their weakness. No false humility. No need for you to say, well, I can't do nothing. No, God's given you something. To use for his kingdom's sake. To aid somebody in their time of weakness. My calling and my gift is preaching. But what I realize is that preaching is not for me to show or to cause people to be amazed or something of that nature if I could. What I'm doing every time I get behind that pulpit is I'm taking the calling, the strength that God has given me, hopeful that he will put it in the heart of somebody that's in a weak spot of some sort. And then, Brother Joey, down the road, and you've had it happen, all preachers have it, they preach the gospel. Somebody would come up to you and said, you don't even remember me, and I was in a meeting one night, and I was at the end of the road, and God let you preach to my heart, and it delivered me. Where I'm at, I am because of a sermon that you preached. Our marriage is together because we were there that night when you preached us in our weakness. And I've run in, preach a youth conference over there at Brother Carey's every year. And it's been like 20-some years, but I am so blessed across that, I cannot tell you how many times, across that northeast Mississippi area, how many times that I'll be out in town, Esther and I or something like that, and what was a young man will now be married. I've had it happen, married, will come up to me and say, preacher, I used to come to that youth camp over there, and I'm going to tell you what you preached, and tell me what I preached. And said, God did something in my heart tonight that I hadn't got over. Huh? I preached out there out of Proverbs one time on what goes up must come down. Isaac Newton, theory of gravity. The apple's going to fall if it comes loose. And I said, that's a principle of the Scripture. Whatsoever you sow, you're going to reap. And if you take something and throw it up, you better watch out. She's coming down. And I had several of those young men, but some of them were real small on up, and I had them to throw something up. And some could throw so high and some not so high, and the least one barely got it up. And I said, now we saw the difference on the height, but there was one thing that was the same. Everybody that threw something up, something came down. And a young man come up to me and he said, preacher, I remember when you preached that, what goes up must come down. And said, I've thought about it every day of my life, that I don't want to throw anything up that I don't want to come down. I don't want to plant anything that I don't want to have to reap and have to sow. Think about that God has given you something. God has given you a power and a strength to pray and to love and to give and so on. For those, it's for the weak. Find the weak. Use the energies on the weak. Because you're going to need somebody to love you, to learn from you, and to lift you. Somebody that has become strong because you shared your strength with them when they were weak. Now, I'm going to use one of your own. Shannon, I thought about this. He had the joy of having this man in Sunday school. Is that right? In his own words, even in the presence of his preacher, he said, that's the least one I ever thought was going to amount to anything. But brother, I can tell by his affections to you now, that in spite of what you thought, you invested in him. You taught him. Let him take part, like you are these kids coming up here taking part in the singing and things of that nature. You invested in them. They're weak. He was weak. But he didn't realize that one day, why, he's getting older. He ain't old. But without his getting older, that the young man,
That's right.
that you could tell was so weak and ignorant, that God has raised up to where he has a voice that everybody in this church listens to that voice.
That's right.
They said, David, Jabesh Gilead. He said, Jabesh, what? Weren't they those, the one, Saul? Yeah, you're talking about the same ones. But they're the ones that wrought the great victory as they came to deliver Saul and Israel in their weakness. Can't ever get out of my mind what the ladies said to Naomi when they placed Ruth's baby in her lap. She became nurse unto it. Grandma's going to take care of that baby. And they said, this child will be a nourisher of thee in thine old age. And what they said, what they were saying to her is, if you'll take care of the baby will take care of you. Grandma, you've been taking care of all these babies. They taking care of you now. Huh? Ain't that a blessing? You go back there and say something sour to her, and you'll have about 19 on top of you right in a minute. I'm sure of that. In love, they'll beat you up. But aren't you glad that God let you have an influence?
Amen. Yes, Lord.
All that time ago. Don't say you don't have any strengths. God has given you abilities. use them for His glory for somebody around you, close to you, and even far away from you if you hear the need to go and minister to that child. I'll say this in closing. I'm talking about weak and strong. They really run hand in hand. And they intersect in everybody's life. My daughter adopted my brother's granddaughter, West Virginia, all that alcohol and everything's involved. Little Raylan almost died from overdose of drugs that her mother had given her. She was on trial, her mother was, because of that. And they asked me why we went up there, we set up a tent meeting for 2 years to preach, hoping some of them would get right with God and minister to them. But they asked me, said, will you take the baby? I said, well, I can't take the baby. They said, no, your children, maybe one of them will take the baby. And Lydia and Brandon really prayed about it. And of course, through a process, they adopted Raylan, which was one of the greatest gifts we ever got, out of her weakness, where she was at. But I'm going to tell you something. She's got there's 4 of them daughters, and they all love their mama. But you can watch Raylan. And I said to her, I said, now, Lydia, all your daughters will love you, and they'll come to your aid. But this one right here that you adopted, I can see it in her heart and her eyes. She's going to be on top of everything.
Amen.
Because you came to her in her weakness. She's getting older now, soon to turn 13. Becoming a young lady, but you can already see the strengths and the love. Take what you've got and use it for somebody that don't have it. And God will bring it back around. Let's stand. I asked my wife to come. I realized last night we brought our weakness to the Lord. But could it be we could come thanking the Lord for the things He has given us and asking Him to show us where we could use them for those that are in need, to help the weak. Lord, I want to be all that I am for your glory by ministering to the weak. Lord, I want to use my hands for your glory as you did your whole life. The Son of God ministering to the sick, the possessed, the weary. Lord, put somebody in my heart to love that ain't being loved. Let me give to somebody that's in need. Let me go to somebody that needs somebody to come. Let me listen to somebody that needs to be heard. And let me speak to somebody that needs to hear. Help me to make somebody strong.
by His love. Once bound by sin, but bound no longer. I'm freed by redemption's claims. Now bound by love, the cords much stronger. I'll serve Him, for His love constrains.
I moved from, had to move. Matter of fact, they come and got me. You know my story, but raised in West Virginia, no mother. My dad went into DTs and I was the last one at home. Had to put him in a mental institution. I had a brother in Ohio, Joe, and Sandy that I just mentioned. They weren't Christians. He was a drunk also. But they decided that they were going to come to West Virginia and get me and take me back to live with them, because I didn't have where to stay. And also, just as a 13-year-old boy, I had quit school. I wasn't going to school. They wanted to put me back in school, and they did. In the apartment that we lived in above some folks that we didn't know anything about, called themselves Christians. And the lady of that house name was Grace, still living. She came upstairs crying one day, and Sandy, my sister-in-law, opened the door and said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Well, I'm a Christian," and said, "I'm afraid you and your family's going to go to hell, and I want to tell you Jesus loved you and died for me." It got into Sandy's heart. She went and got saved. She came back home. I can remember the day she got baptized. She came home, me and my brothers. Of course, I did everything they did. We were playing cards around the kitchen table when she come and brought the preacher with her. She began to witness to Joe, and then a period of time, about a month, he went to that church and he got saved. I knew something was different because we was riding around the road on Sunday afternoon after he gotten saved, and our first language was foul language. Didn't have no mother-in-law home. That's all we knew. And he said to him, "Now, Dana, I appreciate if you wouldn't talk like that anymore." I said, "Well, you was talking like that yesterday." He said, "Yeah, but I got saved." They took me into their home, and as a result of that, I got to go into church 3 times, and then I got saved. That changed everything. But I stayed in their home and went to school and eat their food and slept in their bed for 4 or 5 years. And not one time did they ever bring that up. Not one time did they say, "You know, you don't deserve what we're giving you. Or we don't have to take care of you." Not one. I often told them, I said, "It's what you never said that means the most to me. You never said anything negative about me being there." It's almost like I was just meant to be there. Went off to Bible college in Greenville, South Carolina. Met Esther in the mountains of North Carolina, got married. But here's the thing that kept in my heart as a fire. I never lost the memory of how much, no doubt, they sacrificed for a teenage boy to be in their house when times were hard. Never mentioning it. And I say this humbly because of that, from that day to this, he had a stroke at 47, had to quit pastoring. From that day, and his children helped. I mean, there's nothing lacking on that. But from that day to this, it's been in my heart to always go the second mile to make sure that everything they need is taken care of. If they needed a car, I'd get them a car. Needed the place when they moved out of the house and he passed away, and she was going to have to move because she didn't have. And I said, "No, you're not moving. We'll take care of that." And and I'm just saying this to say to you, when I was weak, They took care of me in my weakness. I don't know where I'd be if it hadn't been for them. I want to make sure that I took care of them in my strength when they were weak. And that is true to this day. That is the process. Let God use your strengths, and you'll never be sorry for someone that is weak.